Welcome to this introduction to the 9 Data Privacy Framework. In this video, we will cover the following topics: key terms, what the 9 Data Privacy Framework is, how the framework is designed to be used by schools, and why a school should use the framework. Before we get started, let's review some definitions so that we are all on the same page. By data protection or data privacy, we are referring to the protection of personal information, often used in the context of complying with relevant legal requirements. By data protection program, we mean a formally established or informal grouping of policies, procedures, and defined practices, designed to ensure that an organization processes personal data appropriately, responsibly, and in accordance with all applicable legal requirements. When we say data protection framework, we mean a systematic guide which helps an organization implement, measure the success of, and maintain a data protection program. And when we refer to personal data, also called personal information, we are talking about information about specific identifiable individuals. Things like name and email address would be an example of personal data. Okay, so now we understand some of those definitions, let's take a closer look at the 9 Data Privacy Framework. The 9 Data Privacy Framework is a free resource produced by 9 which provides schools with a structured approach to creating and maintaining an effective school data protection program. The framework is designed to be used by any school regardless of size, geographical location, or whether or not you have an existing data protection program. It is unique in that it is the first data protection framework specifically designed around the needs of schools. 9 has been working exclusively with independent schools around the world for over 10 years. We've incorporated that experience into building this framework. If you are not familiar with 9, we encourage you to watch our About 9 video to get an understanding of who we are and what we do. Structured around 64 activities, which are split into 9 categories, the framework is designed to provide schools with a comprehensive methodology to evaluate the various aspects of your data protection program, or to help you identify how to create a program if you do not have one. Its purpose is to help schools better understand how to operationalize your various data protection legal obligations in a manner that both measurably enhances your data security and naturally creates evidence of compliance. So how is the framework designed to be used by schools? Now that you're a little more familiar with what the framework is, let's discuss how your school could use it. Rather than being as structured as a sequential checklist of to-do items that all schools must complete, the framework is instead designed to be customizable, so as to enable your school to identify which specific items your school should implement based on your needs at a given time. Each of the framework's 64 activities are designed to be independently implementable actions that are tied to a legal obligation and/or best practice. It might be helpful to simply think of the framework's activities as modular building blocks that different schools can utilize in different ways, depending upon their unique needs. For example, some schools who use the framework may decide to implement 10 activities, while other schools may implement 50. Some schools may initially focus on the framework's first category, while others might focus on the 5th category as their starting place. The takeaway is that there is no inherently right or wrong number of activities to implement, nor is there a correct order in which to implement activities. We encourage schools to use the framework as a basis for conducting recurring assessments of your data protection operations. Through having regular discussions with appropriate stakeholders within your school around the framework, such as your school's leadership team, IT staff, data protection committee, or board of regents to give a couple of examples, you can get a better understanding of both what you are doing well and where you need to focus your resources. The regularity of such discussions would be entirely based on your needs. Regardless of the frequency, the framework's organization into discrete categories was in part designed to facilitate such discussions, insofar as different discussions may require different participants. The important thing is that 9 recommends that each activity within each category should be analysed, for example to identify whether an activity is a legal requirement for your school, or, if not, whether you would nevertheless benefit from implementing it. Regularly working through the framework in this way will naturally generate a list of activities based on the framework that you have determined are of particular interest or benefit to your school. From there, your school could prioritise those identified activities based on resources, board priorities, or ease of implementation, among other considerations. It is that prioritisation of activities which will form the nucleus of a strategic data protection programme plan for your school. Compliance is not a one-and-done activity though. Rules change, risks increase, staff change jobs, and school leadership's priorities can shift. Thus, 9 recommends continually engaging in such discussions year after year. Doing so will help ensure that you have a strategic plan that adapts to change and reflects your current state and needs. Using the framework to drive the growth of your data protection program on an ongoing basis like this will not only help you to be agile to such changes, but will also provide a means of quantifiably demonstrating the growth of your data protection program over time. For example, you might be able to show that during the first year, you were able to implement 7 activities out of 9 identified, but during the second year, you were able to implement 11 activities out of 11 identified. This ability to chart and quantify the ongoing development of the data protection program is extremely helpful for decision makers such as boards of directors. Now that we have discussed what the framework is and how you could consider using it, we can talk about why schools should use it. One previously stated benefit of adopting the 9 framework is the ability to systematically generate strategic priorities and plans for your data protection program. This is important since a lot of data protection programs languish when they lack direction or identifiable steps to take. It is a common practice for organisations to approach data protection in an unstructured fashion. This is partly understandable, given how many data protection laws are filled with generalised pronouncements of what schools need to do, but without much guidance on how schools should do it. With 9's recommended approach, detailed in the previous section, you'll inherently be creating strategic data protection program plans. It is those plans which provide your school with a structure to purposefully and proactively enhance your data security and legal compliance. Another benefit of using the framework in your school is the framework's focus on evidence and metrics. From 9's experience, working with schools, we know that many schools have implemented very sophisticated data protection controls. The difficulty that some schools face, though, relates to a lack of documentation to show what you are doing and how well you are doing it. The framework helps with that, because it's focused on ensuring that a school's data protection program generates evidence and measurable output, such as logs and databases. This design will help you further instill a metric focus within your data protection program, which will help you improve operations, spot inefficiencies or problems, and demonstrate your legal compliance. Lastly, another benefit of adopting the 9 framework in your school is achieved simply by having those regular discussions around data protection. Such discussions not only provide the opportunity for schools to identify measurable, achievable objectives, but also provides the staff from the data protection program with an opportunity to update the stakeholders on new initiatives and completed projects. Such discussions also help schools achieve one of the key hallmarks of an effective data protection program, building a culture of privacy. In short, the journey of using the framework, meaning the discussions themselves, is equally as important as the destination of those meetings, meaning the strategic plans generated therein. Cutting across all of those stated benefits is another key consideration: assurance. By using the 9 data privacy framework, your school can gain confidence that it can develop and implement meaningful measures to build and enhance an effective data protection program. The framework gives you greater peace of mind that you are proactively building a more effective data protection program, which further enhances the security of data that you are entrusted to protect. Thank you for watching this video. For more information on the framework, or to schedule a discussion to learn more about how it can help your school, please visit our website or email us at info@9.com.